Hey, I'm Connor the Language Star, and in this video I'm going to give you 5 reasons why you should learn Russian if you want to travel in Eastern Europe. So that's in Russia, Moldova, Belarus and Ukraine in particular.
So coming to Eastern Europe and assuming that the local people are going to speak English would be a really big mistake. Now, Education First have done a ranking of the countries around the world and the proficiency in English. So what they say is that this region, Eastern Europe, is actually graded in the 4th lowest out of 5 categories. So it's got a very low level of proficiency in English. Now, to give you a comparison, that would be the same as going to China or to Latin America according to their grading system, while Central Europe would get actually a high proficiency, so the 2nd out of the 5 grades. So there you can see the really big difference between these two regions, Central and Eastern Europe. In general, you can use Russian as a lingua franca in the region everywhere except probably here so much, which is Western Ukraine, because here they tend to speak Ukrainian, not so much Russian in general. Although here in the center of Lviv, which is the main city, you can get by with Russian in general, but a lot of people will reply to you in Ukrainian, so you kind of need to be able to at least understand it, even if you don't speak Ukrainian. And even if you only learn Ukrainian just to come here to Lviv, it's a beautiful city, so it's well worth the investment of your time to be at least able to understand it. Really, one of my favorite cities in Eastern Europe is here in Lviv. So what are the advantages to you of having gone and learned, say, Russian? Now, I did a video before with Benny Lewis of Fluent in 3 Months where we spoke about the English-speaking tax, which is when if you rely on English, you tend to be more vulnerable to paying higher prices. If you try to pay for a taxi here, and you get one on the street, then you have to negotiate the price. So if you speak in English, they're going to think it's Christmas, quite literally. They're going to demand, maybe 50%, maybe double the price, maybe 3 or 4 times the price than they would to a local person. Now, the best way to get a price here, say here in Ukraine, is actually to call a taxi. They're always cheaper than haggling on the street. But there you're going to have to be able to speak at least Russian to be able to order a taxi, because if you don't speak Russian, that's really going to be a problem. I actually used to have that when I first came here and I didn't speak Russian. I could not order a taxi. It was so frustrating. You can, of course, rely on taxi apps. They've kind of improved things a good bit. So you have, of course, Uber that is kind of now international, of course, and you can use that app. But it actually tends to be a bit expensive. In any case, Uber, which is unusual because in most countries it's actually a cheaper option, but here, for example, in Ukraine, it's a good, even without the surge charging, it's still about 20 to 30% more expensive. So the second big advantage you'll get by speaking Russian as opposed to English is in terms of just communication in general, right? It goes further than just your basic communication in terms of a taxi driver, with people in restaurants. It's actually important for building real relationships in the region, because if you can't speak Russian, then you're really going to narrow the number of people that, of course, you can communicate with in general, make friends with, or just hang out with while you're in the region. And if you don't speak Russian, it's really hard to understand, say, the conversations that are going on around you, right? Because if you don't speak the local language, and especially not Russian in Eastern Europe, then you're going to miss so much. Without Russian, it's 10 times harder. I know that because I actually came on my first trip to the region without speaking really any Russian, and it was so hard and it was so frustrating. So the third big advantage to having learned Russian and traveling Eastern Europe is the ability to find out what's going on locally, because a lot of the best tips, say for restaurants or events, it's going to be written in Russian, or we're here in Western Ukraine, so we're in Lviv, so they're going to be written in Ukrainian, so you could just about be able to figure it out normally if you also can speak Russian. And that's a big advantage. I'll give you an example. Like, there are lots of guides, local guides, or Facebook pages where people discuss what's going on, events. Like, I was in Kiev just at the weekend, and because I was able to read Russian, I was able to know that there was a local electronic music party going on, and I could go and join it because they actually had nothing in English. So you're not going to get the best local tips because local people write about those in their own languages, and that makes it harder if you rely on English. That's another big advantage, is actually being able to get that local information and find the best places and read all the comments that they leave and everything, so you can decide if you want to go to something. So the fourth big advantage is making your traveling a lot less stressful. So if you can speak and understand, it just simplifies your life, man. I remember the first time when I came to Eastern Europe and I didn't speak Russian, and it was so frustrating, so much extra pressure to communicate with people because I couldn't read anything. I couldn't really get the basic starters in a restaurant out in Russian or Ukrainian if you're here in Lviv. So that really makes a huge difference in terms of being able to relax and enjoy your traveling, get so much more out of it, because you're not that permanent state of stress and panic that you're being exposed to a language that you can't understand. So the fifth reason that I'm going to give for learning Russian in this region is avoiding scams. That's a little bit connected to paying higher prices, but it's more explicit because obviously if you don't understand what's going on, you don't speak Russian, you're going to be seen as a bigger target because scam artists look for people who are vulnerable, don't really understand the environment that they find themselves in. Like, for example, a very common thing that happens to a lot of guys who come here, especially because the women are very beautiful, of course, in Eastern Europe, Russians, Ukrainians, Moldovans, Belarusians, people in the Baltics, everywhere. In the general region, women are really beautiful. So a lot of guys, say from the United States, North America, and Europe, Western Europe, they come here hoping to, of course, meet beautiful girls. And that leaves them very vulnerable if they don't speak Russian. Now, I've never had a bad experience at all, but of course I speak the language, and I hear so many times that, you know, they meet some girl, maybe it's on a dating app or a dating website, or they go to a restaurant, they don't really understand what's going on when things are being ordered, and all of a sudden the bill comes, and wow, instead of being something like reasonable, like 20 or 30 euros for the meal, it turns out it's like 300, and they have some big burly bouncer telling them that they gotta pay up. Of course, the whole thing is a scam. The girl is in on it. She brought them to that restaurant simply to rip them off. And I saw this happen to a Portuguese guy who was traveling here, and he got scammed away. And the other part of the problem for him was that he couldn't read the bill properly. And he felt under a lot of pressure just to pay because they had some champagne and seafood platter, but it was like maybe 10 times the real price it should have cost. So definitely, if you don't speak Russian, you're vulnerable. You might be seen as naive and someone that the scam artist is going to target. So that's another very good reason to speak Russian and definitely understand the environment very well. I've also seen it happen that friends have ordered bottles of champagne in, say, a restaurant or a nightclub, and then the waiter came back and spoke in Russian and said, basically, yeah, this is the bottle, or they said, oh, that bottle's not there, is this one okay? And they accepted, and of course the price of that bottle was multiples of the original bottle that they wanted. So instead of paying, say, something like $30 or 30 euros, they ended up paying, you know, 200, 300. So I've seen that happen. I actually saw a bill of 450 as well, someone not understanding what was going on. So that's vital you get that one right, and learning Russian is definitely going to be a great defense to that. If you enjoyed the video, please give it that big thumbs up, and yeah, write me about your experiences, of course, in Eastern Europe, how you found it, whether you've heard of scams, whether you found it to be the price level that you negotiate was better. And definitely, in any case, Russian is a really great language. I really enjoyed learning it and using it, and also Ukrainian. I'm here in the beautiful city of Lviv in Western Ukraine, and I also encourage you to give that a go if it's useful for you, if you plan to visit here. So it's goodbye from this video. Do pobачення, which is goodbye in Ukrainian, and do svidaniya, which is goodbye in Russian.